Hey, it's Jangleeson Blue of the Resilient Body, and today is all about releasing the iliacus. So the first thing you're going to want to do is lie on your back and grab a block. So the most basic version of this release is to simply lie flat, get your lower leg vertical, and then prop yourself up so that your pelvis has the ability, and I'm going to do this actively, but you would do this passively, has the ability to post-tilt. So it can sort of relax down, your lumbar spine is going to flatten or curve. So it can take a little effort to place the block in exactly the right way. I have the block right now on the lowest level. If you have more openness through the front of your hips where your iliacus is connecting your pelvis to your femur, then you could come up, and I suppose maybe, I don't know, I can't even, my lower legs aren't tall enough for that in any event. Maybe somebody's is. But for a lot of people, myself included, it's helpful to play around with some modifications. So we're gonna do a bunch of modifications, and you can put these together in any combination that you want. But again, the basic premise here is that your pelvis is allowed, not forced, but allowed to relax this way toward the ground, away from the femur, lengthening these muscles here. The first thing I want to encourage you to do is to bolster up the head and the shoulders so that your ribs relax down. So if you've done a psoas release, then this might be kind of familiar. I'm going to put these here, and I'm going to grab this for my head. And so you'd sort of come, you know, most of the way down your shoulder blades. But what I really want here is just for the ribs to be relaxed. So you could hang out here, maybe do a psoas release, allowing the ribs to drop down. Maybe if your psoas is already released, then you just want a little something under your shoulders or head, like a dome under your shoulders, a block bolstering your head, just so that your ribs stay nice and relaxed down. So from here, in this position, you can play around with a few things. And one of those is the height and density. So we already talked about the block, right? You can kind of find the right spot and allow the pelvis to tilt. You can raise the block so that you're a little bit higher if you have a little bit more openness through this part of the body. But even this, like it can be So I'm going to suggest a couple of other things. And for me today, I'm gonna not bolster up quite so high. So in addition to using the block, another good option is something a little softer. So that could be another yoga bolster, or in this case, if you can get a blanket or a towel to be relatively even, you can see that this can allow that same passive post-tilt action, allowing the low back to move toward the ground as your pelvis moves away from your thigh bone or your femur. And so you can hang out like this. If you're having trouble getting a sense for the movement, I sometimes find, and sometimes I just do this because it feels good, is to use a dome. This is a foam dome, and you can have it upside down, and this will also allow that movement. And what I find, especially with the dome, is that you sometimes have to slide the hips down a little bit. But then you can sort of get a sense for, okay, this is exactly how this is going to go, because the dome moves in that plane as well. So then you just hang out. Again, some of these are particularly ideal for those of us who, shall we say, are particularly tight in this part of the body. And hanging out here. But for now, I want to come back to the block and show you some other modifications that I tend to make for myself or for my clients. So So here I am on the block, and if you, one of the, we have these vertical lower legs, but we also want to make sure our knees aren't splaying at all, and that can be that can be a tendency, especially if you've got a lot of tension here, sometimes caused by the psoas as well. But if you tie your knees together so that they stay pelvis width apart, then that can be really useful too. And so this enables your body to just relax a little bit more. You don't have to be working to keep your knees in line with your pelvis. And you can just let them relax against the strap or belt or whatever it is you're using. And again, the pelvis can just gradually drop back toward the ground. And you might find, with a little bit of time, that you want to maybe go up to the next level, right? I don't. I could probably go up another inch or two. And then I want to show you the last modification that I like to play around with, and that is to bolster the feet. So we want some space here, right? Because under the low back, because we need room for the pelvis to drop. But we might have so much tension through the front that the body doesn't quite yet want to let go. So you can bolster the feet about the same height as your backside, and that might give your body the permission that it needs to just release a little bit here, right? And if your hips are bolstered even higher, then what you can do is, the feet are at this height. So maybe you bolster your feet as high as your hips, and then you gradually drop the feet down. So I have this rolled blanket, and so maybe I get some release with my feet at this height, and I want to drop them down a little bit lower, but not as low as the floor, right? And then maybe I can see if I can get some release here. And maybe once you've gotten some release here, you can come on all the way down and see if in this position your iliacus will open up. And you might find that you have sensation through the front of the hip crease. You might feel it all the way through your quadriceps. Your rectus femoris is also a hip flexor. And then finally, I'm going to grab the dome for this. Because I also like to, I will sometimes prop this way, and I particularly like this configuration as well. And sometimes, especially once I've gotten a little bit of release, I will hang out here, and then I might say walk one foot forward a bit. So the other foot, by maintaining its position, it sort of helps keep the pelvis a bit anchored. And I'll begin to feel some lengthening through the side that I've walked forward. Maybe once you sort of feel stabilized in this position, and you can sort of watch your pelvis, does it move? Are you coming up as you go, or can everything stay relaxed as you walk that leg forward? And here particularly, you're going to start getting, I think, a little bit more to the quadricep. But you can see it's opening. We're beginning to move a little bit out of some of the chronic hip flexion. And then you can try the other side. Just something to play around with. Ideally, you have the ability to be totally straight through this part of the body. So that's what you're working toward. We talk about bolstering this high, the hips, you want to be able to have a straight line. So I and many other people are on our way there. And until then, I encourage you to, hack your iliacus release so that you can get the most bang for your buck and meet your body exactly where it is with whatever limitations you have. Until next time.